complex it gets, no doubt. And the more complex it gets, the more internal battles that there can be as good as a company can possibly be. The smaller you get, when you got one decision maker that makes the decisions, it's easier to be fast and flexible. And you know, our customers many times say, "You guys aren't fast and flexible." Well, we aren't. We have 100,000 people, you know, that are working there, and you can't make a decision and say, "Okay, let's just start doing this." The smaller organizations have that. So if you want to have that fast, flexible opportunity where you can control quick movements and stuff like that, then you probably don't want to go to work for Procter & Gamble or J&J or IBM or anything like that. If you want to be in a situation where you can impact, you know, millions of people, then, you know, larger companies, you know, may be it. It may be beneficial to start in a larger company and then move your way down. I don't mean career-wise. I mean from a size to, you know, perspective. A lot of people who go to work for J&J and work there for 10 or 12 years end up in smaller companies, and they actually are the VPs of whatever or the presidents of whatever, because all the skill sets that they learned at a big giant company like J&J, which you're going to get a lot of exposure to, a lot of things. I mean, imagine if you're the HR person for J&J and you've got, you know, 3,000 employees. I can guarantee you after 3 or 4 years, there won't be anything that you haven't seen from an HR perspective. So that when you go to, you know, Jones Company and there's 50 employees, you could probably run the whole show there and be the person that makes the decisions and impact where the organization is going from an HR perspective. You learned all that because you've probably seen everything you possibly could see by working in a large organization. So again, it's that mindset of the first place you go when you leave here won't be the last place, and you're going to start to look at opportunities that might say, you know, I'm going to start here, but my end goal is here. I always tell people, act about the job that you want, not the job that you have. So when you get into your first job, whatever that first job is, and you started to settle in, and you see the next job that you have, start showing up to your superiors so that they start to visualize you in that job. I tell people all the time, it's not about the job that you have. The job that you're doing is important, but if I don't see you mentally doing the next level job, it's hard for me to promote you to that. When we do talent reviews, and it'll be a room very similar to this, and I've got, you know, 14 division managers sitting in there where we've got a screen up and we put, sort of like remember the old movie Animal House, where we start putting pictures up there, where we start putting, you know, Jim Jones's picture up there. The division manager will start talking about Jim and the accomplishments that he's done and what he can and what his skill sets are and all that sort of stuff. And we'll all be sitting around the room and we'll start talking about Jim and what he brings to the table. The kiss of death in those situations is, I don't even know who that guy is. To kind of talk a little bit about brand, going back to your brand. I don't know who Jim is. Where the air goes right out of the room for Jim in that particular meeting. So then you got to go back and sit down with Jim and say, you know, I've talked about you in talent review. Here's the things that we talked about. Here's some of the feedback. Not a lot of people know who you are. Not a bad thing, but the brand is not that well known yet. So what are you doing about your brand so that the next time I sit down in this meeting, I go, you know, I've had some interactions with that guy before. He was on this project that we put together. He was super. He did this, 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 and this. All of a sudden, the conversation about Jim starts to change. And so as you start getting into your first role and you're spending that first year in it, the first year you need to learn what you're doing. You need to figure out what the job is all about. But then start thinking about your 1 year, your 3 year, and your 5 year plan as to what you want to do next. And then you start putting yourself in situations where this group, as we're sitting here and your picture comes up, I can sit there and go, you know, I can see Jim being a division manager at some point in time. We need to do this for him. We need to do this for him from a development standpoint, start working his career path that way. When you get into a job, 100% of your job needs to be focused on the job. And as you start to get a little bit farther down the career path of that particular job that you're in, then it starts to get a little bit of managing your career at that point as to getting yourself in situations where they are. All of you, by sitting at this table, or if you're in the executive society, or you're in the marketing club, or the HR club, or whoever all those clubs are, you're building your brand and differentiating yourself. Because I always ask this question, how many people have a Facebook page? Everybody has a Facebook page. How many of you would want me to open up my phone and go to Facebook and look at your profile picture right now?
Good point.
That's right. And you know what? People are learning. But there are a lot of times where that's not. Or LinkedIn. I've seen some crazy LinkedIn profile pictures too. That's a brand moment right there. That's a snapshot right there. Auburn has done a really good job of educating its students about brand snapshot moments. But Facebook is sort of a harsh example of what it is. But it's no different than how you show up at your job every day, what you look like when you show up. Do you volunteer for extra projects? Are you willing to move to Kansas City? Are you willing to do some things? Those are all brand moments that differentiate yourself from the person who doesn't do it. So think about your career as your Facebook profile picture, and what do people think about when they think of you when we sit in a room and we talk about talent review and succession planning. Because basically all that is a Facebook page where we put his picture up there. And we're trying to determine, is the next picture him going out of a beer bong, or is it something I visualize him being a division manager next? So that is really what talent review and succession planning is. And we do it twice a year. The first one's a little bit more of an informal one, but the second one in the year is much more of a formal one. And then what we at the end of the day will do, we'll have a list of people that we see as ready now, ready future, and ready later. And later it means 5 years from now or something like that. And that could be you're right out of the organization, and we'll put your picture up there for 5 minutes and go, the guy's only been here 2 months, you know, we don't see anything, but we want to get familiar with him. This is what we've got him working on so far. Bam, your picture's gone. But as you start to get in there a little bit farther, we start talking about, 1 year, 3 years, and 5 years. You don't want to get to that point where you're supposed to be ready now and your Facebook page is still the beer bong. I'm speaking metaphorically as that's what it is. Because that's what talent review and succession planning is we're reviewing you and your ability to do the next job. And you want people to be able to see you in that next job. If you don't, I've got a good friend who works for Costco. He's an assistant manager he's been there probably 10 or 12 years. And he called me up one day and I'd just come back from giving a speech on brand. And he says, I want you to help me. And I said, sure, I've known him for 4 or 5 years now. We play golf together. He said, I want to be a general manager of a Costco. I've been doing this for a few years. And that's what my next goal is. I want to be a manager of a Costco. It's great. He didn't go to college, but I'm not sure that's necessarily at Costco. So I said, okay, let's meet for lunch. I said, okay. So I'm going to be coming from work. I said, okay. He shows up, and he's got jeans on. He's got a T-shirt on. He hadn't shaved in probably 3 or 4 days, and a hat on backwards. How easy was this conversation for me? I said, because I'm guessing if I called this Costco manager up and said, come out here, I just want to visually look at you, I'm guessing he wouldn't show up looking like that. It was a brand moment for him. So we had a long conversation about act for the job that you want, not the job that you have. Now, his job as an assistant manager, he was responsible for, the floor and all that sort of stuff. So I get the fact that you couldn't wear a, Joseph A. Banks suit to do that. But I also said metaphorically, I'm not visualizing you as leading and being the face of and I don't know what a Costco store does, but let's just say it does, $20 million a year. I'm not visualizing you running a $20 million company just as a snapshot. It would be like if we all turned and I put his picture up there and it was him standing there with his jeans and a T-shirt and his hat on backwards and hadn't shaved in 3 or 4 years, and we were having a talent review conversation, the first thing you're thinking of is, wow, really, that's the picture I want us to use. Before we ever get into his conversation about what he has done and not done in his career there, which he actually has done some things. But it's those minute things that can be the difference between you two getting a job or the promotion. It's fractional is the difference. And it doesn't mean that you're good and you were bad at it. It just means he's done a little something different. He went to Kansas City. You said, I don't want to go to Kansas City. I want to stay in Birmingham because I want to live in the Alabama, Birmingham, Atlanta triangle. It's that fractional of a difference in these kind of things. So be thinking about your brand almost every day and what it is that you're doing to promote your brand so that when people start talking about you, they think about seeing you in another role. Act like the job you want, not the job that you have. Act like the job that you want, not the one that you have.
Do most of your